There we go. Cool. Figured it out like a real computer guy, right? All right, cool. So howdy. How's it going? Everyone doing all right? Friday, 3 p.m., GrrCON. Everyone a little tired yet? Yeah, sounds like it. So, welcome to Critical Incident Surviving Layoff. Alternative title could be When It Rains, It Pours, because I'm going to spin a tale for you that some people know, but most people don't. And boy, howdy, it's kind of like it would be kind of like if Shonda Rhimes got a hold of my book and wrote my story for a day. If you don't know Shonda Rhimes, she makes such great shows like Grey's Anatomy. So this is if she told my story, basically. So we'll go ahead and get started talking about this. Talk is brought to you in part by cold brew coffee and LaCroix, because I was up at about 3:30 this morning still making these slides. So long night was long. It's all good. Procrastination is, kind of a bitch. So anyways, thanks to these things for making it all happen. A little bit about me. My name's Tom. I've been in information security now for about 6 years, I would say. I've been in IT in general for about 10. I am a former Red Hat instructor, so that was a lot of fun. I used to teach the Red Hat certification, the RHCSA. Had a lot of fun doing that. That's kind of the extent of my public speaking, so to be here is completely terrifying and frightening, but we'll make it work. So thank you all for being here. Thank you. Just out of curiosity, did anyone catch Ray Davidson's talk yesterday about the MIC3 National Guard for Cyber? I'm part of that. It's a really cool thing. I unfortunately did miss his talk yesterday, but I am part of that as well, and it's kind of fun. So I am on Twitter, Compromised. I'm real proud of that one. Took me a while to figure it out, though. But hey, I'll take it. And so that's just a little bit about me. When I get nervous, I tend to default to swearing and sarcasm. So if you're offended by that, sorry, tough shit. I'm also a CISP, so this is obviously my day-to-day life. I've got the standard issue gold chain, all of it. This is 100% real if you're a CISP, totally. No sarcasm, except all sarcasm. If you haven't seen this video, Google it. It's pretty funny. So, I found this quote last night. I've heard it before, but I found this quote last night, and I like it. All it takes is one bad day to reduce the sanest man alive to lunacy. This is, of course, the Joker from The Killing Joke. And the Joker's origin story, in this particular lore, I'm not super into it, but I know that basically it's the case of he has a series of bad events that happen on his one day that drives him to lunacy. And the whole entire point, spoiler alert, of the story is that the Joker feels that if he can break people and he can break them down, he can turn them into him, basically. Everyone has their one bad day that can drive them to lunacy. I'd like to think that my one bad day that I'm about to tell you about didn't drive me to lunacy, but I'm also standing in front of here, talking to all of you and all of the internet, telling my story. So you be the judge on whether or not I'm crazy. So what's this talk about? Honestly, it's just going to be a bit of a story time. I'm just going to tell you a story about my one bad day. I'm going to hopefully, teach you guys a few things. You'll learn some stuff from me. And finally, I'm just going to try and have fun, be awesome, and then hopefully entertain you all. So that's what this is going to be. In case there's anyone who needs to dip out early, but too long, didn't read, some bad stuff happened to me. Some more bad stuff happened to me, and then I rose like a phoenix from the ashes and came here. All of the bad things that happened to me are what made this event happen today, because, if it hadn't happened, I wouldn't have anything to talk about, because otherwise I'm a pretty darn boring person. So, my one bad day started like any other. Looked something like this. Woke up late. Always do. Rushed into work because, I woke up late. And I arrived only 30 minutes late for my first meeting, which to me sounds like a great success. It was a normal day, so I got in, Showed up, got through the first meeting. It all went, pretty well as it should. I actually got to a point where we got a project done, which is nice. I was working in compliance at the time, doing things like PCI, SOC. There was a little bit of GDPR discussion on the horizon, and so I was kind of driving a lot of those projects and making sure that we were getting things done for our compliance requirements. So first meeting went really, really well. Got a project done. Finally closed something out. Super excited, feeling great. Went into the second meeting, and I was developing some training material with a coworker around compliance to help teach the rest of the customer-facing workforce what compliance is and how it works and what their needs are and stuff like that, right? And then I got a phone call saying that my furnace had stopped working from my girlfriend at the time. She was at home, and all of a sudden, apparently the furnace didn't work. And it's like, oh, okay. Now, the furnace had stopped working that weekend, one time, and I went downstairs because, I'm Mr. Fix-It, and opened it up and looked at it and said, oh, well, the belt's broken. I know what belts look like. That's not a big deal, right? Replaced the belt. It was all fine and dandy. And then Monday came around, and suddenly it's not working. I'm thinking, well, I'm not really that good at fixing things. Maybe I didn't do the belt right. That's entirely possible. It wouldn't seem hard to put on a belt, but who knows? So I got that call. I think it was around 10:30 or something. I don't remember now. And I was like, all right, well, I'll come home and take a look at it. I had to try a couple things. Didn't work. And so about noon, I packed up and headed home and figured I could pick up the rest of the day from home, depending on what happened from there. So like any great technician, I tried the first things I could think of to get the furnace up and running. You turn it off, turn it back on, right? I'm not an HVAC professional. Didn't stay at a Holiday Inn either, but hey, I figured if it works for computers, it should work for anything, right? In a shocking twist, that didn't work. It still just sat there and hummed quietly and did nothing. And at this point, I realized, boy, I might be in over my head here. It might possibly be time to call an adult. And so I did. I called an adult. I said, hey, need an adult. I don't know what I'm doing. And so I set up a furnace repair, called them, and scheduled them to come out that afternoon. From that point, I decided, I got nothing but time. I might as well start working from home. And so I logged in through VPN and just started, working on policy stuff and whatever I was working at the time. Right? It doesn't matter now. Details don't matter. But started working from home. I had to wait for the guys to show up, and it was going to be a few hours. So cool, get some stuff done. They eventually, of course, did show up. They gave me a couple ideas of the phone if it worked. So they eventually did show up. I took them downstairs to show them the furnace, and we kind of went back and forth on, well, it could be this, it could be that, we could get it fixed, we might have to buy a new furnace, like, just all over, right? And it's like, come on, man, just let me know what's up. And so we started doing some digging, and apparently there was a reset on, like, some part. I'm not an HVAC guy. There was a reset button on some part, he pushed it, and the thing reversed to life, and I'm like, oh, cool, we're done here. He's like, well, I'm looking at it, and this thing's broken, and that thing, it's kind of old furnace. And it's like, yeah, I know. I'm trying to just get through winter, man. It's February, right? It's a little bit chilly out. And so he was going to rebuild some part inside of it. It was going to be a couple $100. I'm like, okay, we'll do it. No big deal. It'll get me through the winter. And so he decided to head back to the shop and get the parts and materials he needed to make it happen. So after that, I went back to work. Started doing some stuff, and I got a message through the instant message system from the chief architect at the company. And this was a little bit weird. This was a strange message because normally he wouldn't reach directly out to me, right? He would normally go through like my, supervisor at the time, or it would be through email or something like that. To get a direct message, it was kind of like, oh, well, I'm flattered. How nice of you. That's great. And I'd sent an email out just a couple days prior talking about GDPR, saying, hey, this is a thing that we might need to consider because we do have some, overseas presence and it might be a problem, or, whatever. And so he sent me a message, asked me where I was at. Oh, I'm at home dealing with this problem I had. Will you be back in the office today? And I was, absolutely. If you need me to come back in, I'm happy to come back in, figure it all out. And this is all under the premise of, well, I need to talk to you about the email you sent out yesterday. Okay, cool, no problem. I'm feeling semi-well-versed in it, so we can definitely talk about it. Well, yeah, if you're going to come back in, just let me know. If you can make it in, that's great. Otherwise, we can deal with it later, whatever it was. Okay, cool. Started going back to work a little bit more, and I got another message about 15 minutes later or so, again from the architect, asking if he could call me. And I'm like, all right, this is strange. Like, yeah, totally, give me a call. But I'm thinking this is a little bit weird. Like, why does he want to call me? Is this really starting to blow up into that big of a deal? And so he gave me a call. I got up. I was in my living room, moved into the kitchen to take the call, a little bit better signal on the cell phone, living out in the country. So got on the phone, and we started talking about my job a little bit. Like, talking about, like, there's been some changes, and there's been some things that have happened and going on. And I'm expecting a phone call about GDPR. And now I'm hearing this story about, well, there's been some changes. And at first, I didn't really know what that meant, right? I had just recently received a promotion. I had just recently received a more formalized job role. And I'd received a raise with it, a decent-sized raise. And so when we started kind of talking about this stuff that's happened, I thought it was going to be a situation where I would no longer be doing like this compliance stuff that I was doing. I would be doing more typical like security analyst type work. And that was all fine and dandy until we got to something about budget cuts, right? All I heard was something budgets changed. And that it would impact my role. And I said, okay, thinking I'm going back to, day-to-day security work, until I started hearing things talking about services no longer needed and severance package. And that brings us to my first famous quote of 2017. Excuse me, but are you firing me? I'm not firing you, he says. I'm laying you off. Oh, thank you. That lightens the blow so much to know that you're not firing me, you're simply only laying me off. And that was my response. Oh, so you're firing me. No. In all intents and purposes of the word, I'm laying you off. Cool. Okay. In this moment, it was very dark. It was a moment of all the feels rushing to me. And here is a short list of some of the feelings at that exact moment in time. Just a few of them. It's a small sampling. It's a core sample. And I did. Shock. I couldn't believe this was happening. What did I do wrong? Where did I screw up that this was happening? Despair, disbelief, all of it. Panic, everything. Betrayal was a big one because I had been at this place for over 5.5 years. And I had spent a lot of time really, I hate to say drinking the Kool-Aid, but really, really, really dedicated to our mission and dedicated to making the company as good as I could, right? And so it was this moment of, oh my God, I've done all this hard work and this thing is happening to me and I don't know how to process this. So, was not an awesome moment in time. We'll put it that way. This was my all is lost moment. I didn't know how to handle it. So, second famous quote of 2017, on the phone with the chief architect and HR, I'm sorry, but I'm going to need to call you back. Because something had just happened, right? While my world is blowing up across the phone right now, and granted, they did say I could come in tomorrow and we could talk about it. I said, no, we're on the phone. Let's just talk about it now because we're already here. So while my world is crumbling around me, right, on the phone, someone pulls into my driveway. Oh yeah, I'm having the furnace work done right now. Awesome. So this is a moment where I had to triage my incidents, okay? I now have 2 incidents running, and I need to figure out what I'm going to do about them. And from a triage perspective, the furnace takes precedence because they're in my driveway. And they need to come in the door and do the stuff and the things, and it's like 54 degrees in my house, and I'm flipping cold. So, I'll need to call you back. This is really hard when you're finding out that your only source of income is gone, and you're about to spend a bunch of money on something that traditionally when they say you need furnace work, it's really friggin' expensive. I would like to say that I was cool as a cucumber and didn't panic and everything was perfectly fine, but I would be bold-faced lying to you. I shit myself. I'm like, I don't know what to do right now. I can't believe this is happening to me. So, good in theory and practice. Good luck. Here's the plans. We need to triage. Like I said, I've got multiple incidents running now. I have a situation where I have things threatening my income, both, what would come in and what I need to send out in terms of, paying for stuff. And then I have the added stress of it being a personal thing that's happened to me. So I had to compartmentalize these things, right? I couldn't take it all in at once because it was too overwhelming to try and deal with it all at once. So I had to break it down, right? And I had to take this thought to my head, and I remember thinking these exact words: it's just another incident. Because at the end of the day, that's really what it is. It's just another incident. If you strip away the fact that it's all this, personal, emotional type stuff, it's just another one bad day, right? Workstation got popped. There's C2, coming out through the network that we're picking up in the IDS sensor. Like, it's stuff like that, right? It's bad things. And that's what we do as security professionals, is we respond to the bad things. We take care of them, we make them better. We are the rock for the people who are scared of these things. It's just hard when you have to be your own rock. A little squishy, doughy, right? So, I had to take a step back and say, it's just another incident. Put myself in that mindset. I'm not doing this for me, I'm doing this for someone else. Remove that kind of emotional side from it, so. Unfortunately, things with the furnace kind of went from bad to worse. Old furnaces have problems. And so I brought the two gentlemen in from the furnace repair place and took them down to the basement. And I told them when they walked in the door, I said, listen guys, I literally just lost my job as you were pulling into the driveway. And the look on their face was like, is this guy serious? Or is he trying to get like a deal? Like, what's going on here? And I told them, they're like, no way. I'm like, no, I am being 100% serious with you right now. I literally just got fired over the phone. So, that was not awesome. And they were very, very, very understanding and sympathetic of it, which was nice. They were like, all right, we will see what we can do. We'll try and not be crazy. But unfortunately, because it was an older furnace, they needed to do very thorough inspection of it before they did any work to it at all, right? Their boss said, hey, listen, man, with that thing, I need you to check it all out and make sure things are okay with it. And part of that thorough inspection involves something known as a smoke test. And basically, a smoke test with a furnace, the real high level is furnaces have a heat exchanger, right? So it gets hot, it transfers the heat into the air that goes into your house with a forced air system. Heat exchangers have a tendency to crack over time. And when they crack, combustion gases can end up in your house, which is super not good for you. It tends to result in side effects such as, death. And I wasn't looking for that on top of the shit day I've already had. So they had to do their thorough inspection. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your perspective, they found a problem. And they found that my heat exchanger was cracked. And so there was smoke wisping up through the crack in the heat exchanger. And they said, we got to shut you down, man. I'm sorry, what? We got to shut you down. What does that mean exactly? We need to turn your furnace off. You can't run it anymore. It's dangerous. I'm legally required to condemn your furnace. At that point, the severity of the incident escalated. This still sits in my house right now, actually. This is actually still an ongoing incident. Good news is it'll be fixed in 2 weeks. But so I'm staring at this point, and it's like, oh my God, this is really happening to me. My furnace is condemned. I'm not supposed to run it. It's pouring poisonous gas into my house. The world is falling. So, oh yeah, by the way, let's go back to the whole being fired thing, right? Pretty much that's the end of that problem, right? This thing is wrecked, you need a new one. Well, at least I didn't have them fix it first. So now we jump back into the fact that, again, the other kind of, incident, I call this the main course, is running. So I ended up calling HR and the chief architect back, like I said I would, even though they had to bug me a couple times on the messaging thing, to talk to them about the situation. And I talked to them about it and asked them, like, is there any way like I could do this or that? Nope, we don't have budget. Nope, you can't do that. We don't have a head count for you. I'm sorry, you can't go back and do those things. We're done here. It's not you, it's me. Whatever. So we started discussing the details of the layoff. So, well, you've got 5 weeks severance. We'll cover your health insurance through the month, which, I needed to know because that's how I could start figuring out what my plan was. And so, I told them, I'm like, well, my furnace did just like explode, so like, this is really bad timing. Thanks, guys. Anyways, so we kind of discussed the details of that. And so that brings me back into round 2. It's like, okay, well, the first one's over. The furnace situation is closed for the moment, but we still have to deal with this next one. And so I had to continue to compartmentalize it and, again, step back and say, this isn't happening to me. This is just a thing that's happening. Deal with it as such. I had to begin making my plan for, figuring out my plan for recovery. Okay, so I've got 5 weeks severance. I have health insurance through this time. What do my bills look like, right? Figuring all of this out as I go. So this is kind of what my continuity plan looked like at the time of this happening, right? So my girlfriend at the time, she worked kind of a very unstable job, working a lot of grant programs. And if you know anything about grant programs, they have a set amount of time that they run based on budget, and you won't find out whether or not that budget is renewed, typically until the day before it ends sometimes. So working in grants can be very, very difficult, and so there were times where she didn't know if she had a job until literally the day before, which is another show, another stressful thing to deal with, but whatever. And so when I bought the house, I made a plan of, if she ever gets laid off, we can still afford it on one income. It will be okay. Or if she has to jump from grant to grant, it'll be okay. She actually was not working at the time because of the fact she was working through a grant program that had ended. So I had my plan of surviving on one income. I had my plan of having a fully paid car. It was a cheap hunk of crap, but hey, it got me to and fro, and I knew just enough to put it back together to get it to and fro again. And then I would siphon off a little bit of money, from my check into a savings account for that one rainy day. Of course, that rainy day didn't include plans for multiple incidents at a single time. It was more of a series type thing, not a bunch of things happening all at once. So there were some gaps in my plan. Never had a plan for zero income. The idea of losing my job was never on my mind, ever. I never really thought it would be something that would happen. Did good work, always worked real hard. I never thought about it. The whole dead furnace thing wasn't helpful at all. Again, I had plans for one bad thing happening, but not 2 or 3 happening, all within the course of 45 minutes. I'd never considered a job loss. So that kind of brings us into what I had to do for disaster recovery at that point, right? So the bad thing has happened. What do I need to do? As soon as I finished up with the HR and the architect on the phone, I went into my kind of disaster recovery, right? I immediately started calling my now former coworkers and saying, this thing just happened. Can you give me a letter of reference? Can I use you as a recommendation? Here's my email. Can I get yours? Because I'm going to need these things because this has just happened. I need this stuff. And again, I like to say that I was totally cool, relaxed, no problem, but that would, again, be a lie. So I'm calling my coworkers frantically. Oh my God, I need to talk to you. Something really bad has happened. Are you okay? Did you get in a car accident? No, I lost my job. Okay. Well, I thought you were dying, but okay. I had to blow the dust off my resume because I hadn't touched my resume in over 5.5 years. How many of you update your resume regularly? Regularly, all the time. Oh, good. Apparently I'm just the oddball. Shocker. So I hadn't been updating my resume regularly. And I pulled it out and I looked at it and it's like, I don't have anything on this at all. Like, this thing is bare. And so that's obviously a bit of an issue. And it's very, very difficult to start thinking about all of the really awesome, cool things that you've done over the past 5 years when you can't do them anymore, right? It kind of hurts a little bit to be like, oh yeah, I loved doing that thing that was fun that I don't get to do anymore. Okay. And then finally I needed to breathe, because when you're not breathing and you're panicking, you don't think straight, right? It's a physiological thing. So just needed to breathe, relax, take a step back. So that was the extent of what I did immediately after. There's still the furnace issue. I turned it back on. It was February. It was cold. It was like 15 degrees outside. Sorry, I turned my condemned furnace back on. I turned the gas, the fuel oil back on, flipped the switch back on, and said, cool, at least it's sort of working again. Knowing, though, that I now had an increased risk of, exposure to CO, I did decide to purchase a brand new CO detector and put it right next to the vent and watched it like a hawk, like every moment. Like, are you beeping yet? What are you doing? Is that a new number? No. It's a speck of dust. We're okay. We're good. And the furnace guys, they did tell me, like, honestly, it's a small crack. It's February. Do what you got to do. We just have our legal things. Once I walk out the door, it's not my problem. So, and I did schedule a quote for a replacement on the furnace because I needed to know how much more that was going to cost. Spoiler, it was almost $5,000. Yeah. That's why it's not getting done until next week. Just shy of $5,000. So, yeah. Got a good deal for you. So, anyways, that pretty much closed it at that point, right? This has just been kind of a run and maintain at this point. So, in terms of recovery from the main course, like I said, I needed help, right? So this put me in a very, very dark place. I went through a lot of continued emotions throughout a lot of it. I discovered I had a support network out there. I mean, a lot of you guys are here right now. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. It wouldn't have done well without you. So, I had one coworker specifically reach out to me first on Facebook, and as I was preparing this talk the other day, I got a hold of her and told her, like, I really appreciate you doing that because I was feeling very, very isolated, very, very alone, very vulnerable, and you just getting a hold of me and saying, I can't believe this bullshit. This is fucked up, really, really helped a lot. Her words, not mine. So, I had that support network. Another good friend put me in contact with a recruiter from Tech Systems in Lansing, and I met with this guy, James Jackson. I told him I was going to shout him out here, and he was like, all right, cool, I'm okay with that. And he worked with me to kind of help me start putting my resume together, because again, he would ask me, like, so what did you do, man? And I'm like, I don't know. I worked. I did stuff. I did things. They were beautiful. Beautiful things. And he's like, well, cool. So what kind of things, right? I couldn't think about the specifics of what I'd been doing because I had been doing it for so long that for me it was just a natural, like, this is just what I do. Like, I don't know. I can't go into the details. And, well, what did you work with? Well, I used Linux. I used Apache. right? He started drilling down the details of the technology that I knew how to use. So he helped me a lot. He helped me kind of realize, like, it's going to be okay. Because I was at a point where, I mean, it was despair. It's like, I don't know what to do. Like, oh my God, maybe I'm done in IT. Maybe I have to go into some other field. I was considering changing my field when this happened. And part of that was because I got a lot of rejection. And that's hard. When you've already been laid off, and you feel like, boy, maybe this was my fault, to have more and more people say, no, you're not good enough. No, sorry, you're not good enough. Through an automated system, an automated fuck you is really, really hard to deal with. I got to the point where I just called them fuck you letters. Got another fuck you letter today. And it's hard. It is difficult to deal with that type of rejection. You don't even get a chance to try your case. It's just immediate, nope, sorry, you didn't hit the checkboxes. You're not good enough. And so James helped me kind of get beyond the checkbox problem, right? He's the guy on the inside that can help you out. So I told him I'd mention him because he did. He helped me a lot. Another thing I did, though, one of my big concerns was like that my skills would atrophy because now I'm not doing it anymore. And I've experienced that where when you don't do something for a while, you don't use a certain tech for a while, you kind of forget a little bit, you know? You forget the muscle memory. It's not there anymore. And so what I decided to do was turn to Twitter. Twitter kind of helped me through this because I started seeing the cool stuff that people were talking about. I became more interested and more active in the information security community on Twitter. And so I'd see people talking about the cool things they're working on. And I actually did a little bit of volunteer for doing some like closed captioning for a video, you know, stuff to occupy my mind because otherwise I would go completely insane. You know, lunacy, right? And so I did that, and that actually helped a little bit, and it helped me not forget the stuff I knew, and I learned new things, of course, because we learn every day. That's part of what we do as information security professionals, is we find something new and we mess with it. So that helped me a lot, and that's part of why I've really kind of enjoyed continuing to do it. So the good news is that James came through, and I did eventually find new work, and so, you know, shout out to him. That was great. Thanks, James. I do have a few lessons that I learned from all of this. And so I thought I'd share them with you because no good incident response or business continuity is good it's not worth anything if you didn't learn anything, right? So some of the things I learned, that a stable job can become unstable real quick. Like, see ya, done. You know, I didn't see it coming, and I mean, it literally, again, it was a normal day until it wasn't. So I also learned, however, that my work-life ratio was jacked up real bad. When I was laid off, I had over 164 hours of PTO banked up. I was constantly hitting the cap at the company, and I would have to burn a day here and a day there because I was so busy all the time I didn't take time off. And I didn't realize until probably 2 weeks after not working just how unhealthy that was. It was bad. I was on a collision course for burnout. I was already at burnout. I was headed towards the end of the wall in burnout where you burst into flames because it's burnout. So that was a really important lesson for me, and I'll tell anyone here right now, if you're starting to feel like you're getting to that point, you need to take a break. You need to take a step back, use some of your vacation time, try and recover from that because it's a bad thing. It really is. Support network was really important. Like I said, I had that one coworker reach out to me. I had more and more people get a hold of me that night through Facebook. And the thing is that the Facebook account, like, I didn't really use it. It was one that I had to, like, I created it because a class I took at a community college was like, we'll give you 50 extra points if you join our Facebook group. And I'm like, okay, I need that because I'm not very good at school. So I'll take my extra 50 points for a Facebook account. There's probably another talk in that, right? Incentives for Facebook. Whew. Anyways, so all of a sudden, this Facebook account that I don't use, I've got 15 new friend requests, and it's all work people, and they're sending me messages and like, oh, this is really jacked up, it's bullshit, whatever. So, but to know that I had that support and I had those people ultimately rooting for me, that helped a lot too, because it's like, all right, I know that at least people care. So. I have a few takeaways for the audience today. The first one I already kind of alluded to was update your resume regularly. I hope that no one here has to go through this because it sucks. It really does. Just know that if it does happen, it's not necessarily you, it's them. Is what I will say. So, but update your resume regularly, okay? Seriously, do that. Go home tonight and update your resume. Talk about the cool things you're doing on it. Because we're all doing cool stuff. Seriously, if you figured out a new thing, if you've done a talk, I can tell you what I'm doing tonight. If you've done a talk recently, or you've given a training, or anything like that, make sure you get it on there and put it on your LinkedIn, put it on your resume, whatever it is. Because when the shit hits the fan, you're not going to be thinking clearly about all the cool things that you've done in the past year or 2 years or 5.5 years, right? So do that. Make a plan as well. Think about it. If you were laid off today, what would you do? Think about it. Talk about it with your family, your husbands, your wives, your dogs, your cats, your chickens if you're me. Talk to them about it and say, what would we do? And I want you to think about that because at the end of the day, a tabletop exercise is better than nothing, right? That's why we do tabletop exercises with incident response, is because, hey, it's better than I need an adult, right? Keep doing networking opportunities. Talk to people, meet new people, come to conferences, get out there and talk to people because at the end of the day, sometimes it is the people that you know that can bail you out, right? And finally, just hustle hard. Keep being awesome. Keep doing the cool stuff that you're doing. Keep putting it on the resume and just generally keep being cool, right? One thing I did want to kind of touch on, which I know is dangerous territory, so here we go, is the degree versus not degree subject. If you're kind of early on in this field and you have an opportunity to consider a degree, at least consider it. I don't have one. I don't have a bachelor's. I don't have an associate's. I have a GED. So that's part of why I had a lot of difficulty, is because I couldn't get past a lot of HR filters. HR filters would say, you need at least a bachelor's. I could do every single thing they wanted, but because I couldn't check that bachelor's box, see ya. Yeah. But so, that made it hard though, right? That was a lot of the continued rejection. So it's something to consider. I am planning to eventually do one, when I get around to it, right? Which is not the right mentality to have, but here I am. So it's just something to keep in mind and think about, right? Like I said, it could be its whole own separate thing, and we won't go down that road, not on these tires. So the good news is I lived happily ever after. I have a great new job. I have an opportunity to learn and grow and do new cool things. I'm helping build a cybersecurity program, which is awesome, which is what I wanted. So I ultimately ended up exactly where I needed to be. And I remember when this happened, I thought to myself, this sucks right now, but it will be better for me. And it was. I got a raise. I've got, the ability to do more cool, awesome stuff. So I did end up living happily ever after. I put this picture in for my boss, who's in the audience, because he likes to hear about my ducks and chickens. So there's my rooster. His name is Mr. Cheeks. And with that, I'd love to open it up for any questions. So again, there's my Twitter, and with that, it's your floor now. So thank you for listening. I hope you had a good time. I hope it was interesting. Thank you. Certification, I believe, did help. So I mentioned the CISP. I also have a few others. I got like A+, Network Plus. I've got some Red Hat certs, Arch CSA. And I do believe it helped because, it helped me get to the point where I was at initially, and then I was able to go in and speak to that experience. So I'm a big advocate personally for certifications, especially if they're like hands-on certs. Like Red Hat, I don't know how many people have done Red Hat certs, but it's literally you sit down and, cool, you've got 3.5 hours, here's the list of things to do, make the computer do it. So, but I do think that certifications are good, especially if you're taking the time to actually learn the material and you're not just trying to bust through and memorize the answers. Yeah. I was unemployed for a total of 6 weeks, actually. So I only missed 1 week of pay, which worked out pretty well. I probably should have mentioned that earlier, but yeah, it worked out really, really well. I had 5 weeks severance. I was only off for 6 weeks, so I had 1 week of unpaid vacation. It wasn't much of a vacation though until I got the job offer. After I got the job offer, I was like, cool, now I can relax. Yeah. Have I taken any PTO at my current job yet? No. However, I have come to conferences and I have had some time off, and I haven't had to use PTO for it yet. So, and I have vacation coming up in November, so I'll be using it then. So, but it's a good question, right? Again, do as I say, not as I do. So, all right, cool, yeah. I did. Originally, I wasn't supposed to, I think, like, because they had just changed the policy at the time. But then I checked, and I had this weird, mysterious deposit in my bank account, and I was like, I'll take it. I definitely need it, so that's cool. So I think that's what that was. I'm not 100%, but okay. Yeah. Welcome. Awesome. Right. I started, honestly, just everywhere, right? I applied to the state of Michigan. I applied to insurance companies. I applied to Chrysler. Literally everyone. So it was kind of a mix. It was mostly like corporate or government, and that was kind of part of why they had those requirements. I ultimately landed with a private company, so it worked out really well there. But it was a lot of the kind of either corporate or government that kind of had those requirements. So yeah, and also welcome. The show is just beginning. You'll have a lot of fun in this field. You had a question? Dave, you're an asshole. Dave Savercool, ladies and gentlemen, my coworker. Fair to answer his question, they did help, yeah, because at least I could go out and hang out with them, and they'd run around and do their cool stuff. And yes, I have considered adding goats. Thanks, Dave. All right, cool. I knew I was going to run a little bit short, and I actually did a lot better than I thought, so that's awesome. Thanks again, everyone. It was really great to have you here. This was the perfect crowd to kind of start this out with. So you've all been wonderful. Enjoy the rest of your GrrCON. And if you see me floating around and you want to say hi, give me a holler. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I appreciate it because that's the main way that kind of people connect with me. So with that, I'm out. Thanks.